All right, we have an overgrown beak on what appears to be a pretty healthy looking three-toed box turtle. So why does this happen in captivity? Even look at those toenails. So this is an animal that's had a cushy life, not a lot of challenges to the beak, as it would normally be eating all sorts of things like slugs and snails and all sorts of vegetation, but everything has been soft for this animal, and so the beak is overgrown, and we're going to fix it. That's a good ½ inch of excess beak. All right, guys, so really good weight. There's some weird growth. A lot of this has to do with humidity, protein, excess protein. A lot of times when we're having animals like this that is an omnivore, this is going to eat insects and all sorts of live animals, plus a lot of vegetation and fruit. Very outgoing animal. It's been somebody's pet, but once again, things just aren't exactly right. But I think the animal's otherwise reasonably healthy. Obviously, this growth on the shell is not quite right, but we got to deal with this this beak right there. They're very, very cute, and it's going to look a little crazy what we're about ready to do, but this is something that needs to happen, and we can improve the quality of this animal's life within a short period of time. All right, here is the animal after fixing his beak. I didn't want to go through and show the process because it is a little tricky, but this animal's gonna have a far better life. The claws are still long, so what you're gonna wanna do, you're gonna wanna nip off the ends, being aware of the quick. You can use a high-powered flashlight. The quick on these nails is very long, so you can use a quick stop, which is for birds if you cut the quick, or even cornstarch. But this is a lovely animal. So this animal, if you just look at it nutritionally, it wasn't given exactly what it needs. And box turtles, contrary to what you think, are not the easiest things to manage, because many people just go, oh, I'm gonna feed it lettuce or whatever. They need lots of protein and insects and earthworms. And I like hard-boiled eggs chopped into quarters with the shell. They'll even eat that. They'll also eat defrosted rodents, all sorts of crickets, roaches, up to yin-yang, lots of fruit, greens, variety, and a cuddle bone.
Kevin's wiping his face off with paper.
Guess what, guys?
What?
I did my first red line shipping, and it was actually easy, really easy. So kind of happy about that. But anyways, I did it, and it was very, very easy. It's very, very easy to line up our shipments, and that's no joke. Today, I'm going to talk about subterranean snakes. You know what's interesting, right? So if you ever hear the term fossorial, see, I'm not so swift.
You don't know words, dude. All right, what do you?
No, I don't. Okay, guys, what is that snake? That is a lovely, lovely creature. This is a Sunbeam Snake. I actually bred these before. And when I hatched out the babies, I was not prepared that they come out with this little ring around their neck. So this is a Sunbeam Snake. This is from Indonesia. They're lovely, but for long-term success, you need to make sure that their cages have a lot of substrate that has moisture, but also has ventilation. Very, very sweet. So this animal, when I say it's fossorial, it likes to spend a lot of its time underground. So under the leaf litter, in the dirt. So like if I say like a coral snake or something like that, that's fossorial. But this is designed with a flat head to kind of go in the leaf litter and find things to eat. And in captivity, these guys, something like this is going to eat a mouse fuzzy. Really, really cool snake. I mean, just look at that.
Have you not talked about the coolest thing they do? They have like sequins on their back. It glows. It's like those sparkles, man.
Well, yeah, this is all this iridescence. So it's kind of like a D'Albert's python, but supercharged. So I use cocoa block like that, the chunk stuff, and then I add some sphagnum moss. And this is ideal. I'm putting this guy in a hot area of 88 to 90 degrees for the hot spot. Cool is around 80 degrees. But this animal is very, very content in a cage like this. And the objective is, an animal like this is I want to establish it. So if I'm going to send it to somebody who's going to keep it as a pet, I want to make sure that I establish it, get it eating well, good care. So I need to be diligent about good husbandry, always making sure the water's clean. In many cases, when I'm dealing with an imported snake, and this is indeed an imported snake, this was taken from the wild and it eventually made it over here into captivity. But more importantly, the majority of these snakes are actually used for things like gallbladders, medicinal value. So I'll tell you a horrible thing. Sunbeam snakes, you can go find them on the live animal markets, and they'll take a loop of monofilament line, they take a needle and go right through its body, and then they loop that and then they hang it on a hook. So you go there and there'll be just all these snakes hanging, and you can just pick one, and if you're going to drink its blood, or you're going to gallbladder, they do some really strange things. So a very small percentage actually make it to the pet thing. So if you're thinking they're just all being taken out of the wild for pets, you're largely missing the reality of what's actually going on with the animal markets. The wet markets, they're a place where I would cry. This is a Calabar burrowing python. Isn't he cute?
Very chunky tail. What's going on there? Look at that.
Good, Donnie, you actually knew it was his tail.
Yeah.
Because look at the head.
Basically the same thing almost.
Isn't that?
Like
So Calabar burrowing python. So this is pretty much also a
Subterranean species that spends most of its time in the subterranean environment of its life. And then when you keep it in your terrarium, you need to make sure you have a lot of material.
actually. So this guy comes from a pretty arid place, but spends a lot of time underground, probably in termite mounds and whatever. And this is a really cool species. This is a Calabar burrowing python. They often have pied marks. This is actually a male.
Look at the pied mark.
When
you say pied mark,
you see that little white thing right there?
Yeah, that's a pied mark?
Yeah, pied. It's just the coloration. So these are incredibly inoffensive. They're very, very sweet. But an animal like this is going to do very well with a deep layer of chunked cocoa block. And they eat things like rat pinkies and rat pups. They don't bite. And when they're really scared, what they'll do is they'll roll into a ball, and they kind of purposely expose their tail as their head. And I think the tail is going to take, the wrath of, let's say, some would-be predator as it tries to disable it by attacking the head. But indeed, it's the tail, and it's a pretty meaty tail. But this animal is not being too scared. I'm getting tongue flicking, so that's actually great. But really, really cool species. So I actually bred these before, and I kept them in these big bins that were really flat, and I was using peat moss and moss in a very deep layer, and then I would put newspaper in there, and then I'd put defrosted rat pinkies and pups, and they come out there and eat those. So they generally lay 2 eggs, and I hatched eggs between 37 and 45 days at a temperature around 88 degrees. They actually maternally incubate too, but I took their eggs away because I'm a monster.
Yeah, you're an egg bandit.
This is almost like a sunbeam snake, but this is very, very different. This comes from a different place. This is actually native to Central America, so like Mexico and such. This is Loxazinas bicolor, New World python. This fantastic, once again, very, very much like a fossorial snake. See how it's flat head for spending a lot of time underground in the leaf litter, but this is a serious predator. And it also has some little pied marks. I don't know why. This is actually a girl. So these, if you ever actually see one of these when they're big, they're super, super impressive. I remember years ago being at Dave and Tracy's place in Texas, and she pulled out a giant Loxazinas bicolor, and I was so impressed. It was gnarly thick. It was super iridescent, very, very powerful, and they're very, very sweet. But once again, an animal like this is going to do very, very well in a layer of substrate, chunked cocoa block. You can put some sphagnum moss in there. As long as, with all these snakes that are kind of like, we're talking the fossorial thing, or they occupy that niche, they are really going to benefit from some moisture in the content of the bedding. That doesn't mean to make it wet. If you have it wet and drippy, what you're going to do is you're going to cause fungal and skin lesions. So it's bacterial and fungal, and that can actually, once those infections start going, they can actually take down the animal quite quickly as it rots the skin and causes a horrible systemic infection. But this animal will do really well in a reasonably well ventilated cage, deep layer substrate. Bring your moisture into the substrate. The animal then can go and choose. Another trick, when you have a layer like that of substrate and you want to actually hold some humidity, take a 12 by 12 tile and put it down. And then what will happen is you actually can start a little burrow underneath that piece of tile, and then you can add a little bit of moisture. That animal will actually go there, it will excavate that area and find a place where it likes to sit, and it gets some humidity. Because once, the species that we're dealing with that actually live underground, when they're respirating, they're breathing, they're bringing in moisture from being in an environment that is humid. If we put them into a desiccated environment that's very, very dry, let's say a bedding that is dry, as they're respirating, they're actually going to lose moisture. And then you can actually get things like respiratory infections, or you can have a respiratory irritant where the animal is just making these clicking noises, they're doing that kind of stuff. People often don't identify that right. They think that's maybe the beginning of a respiratory. Often that is low humidity. In our houses during the winter, it could be 20, 30% humidity. For many of these species, that is actually quite low. We want to start approaching like 50, 60%. So you can add moisture to the substrate, get it so it breathes, but never keep these animals in very wet, dank environments. They won't do well.
That's good.
That's real Tarzan. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at this, guys. So I sent Mike some fantastic animals, and look at that. Look at it. It's like a friggin' lagoon for dragons. That's the dragon lagoon.
Remember to go follow Real Tarzan.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, what? Yo, guy, what do you got, like 10, 12 million followers?
What?
Look at this. This is insane.
Yeah.
You like it?
Oh my God.
Oh, look at that.
What's up?
Look at that fake, look at that.
We got glass on here too. Look at that.
Oh my.
Hey, why doesn't our building look like that, Kevin?
Because I'm not rich.
Dude, get rich.
Yo. Oh my God.
I'm having a conversation now with the guys, and look, I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to put no actual chemicals in here. What do I got to do? I need your help.
So
Help us figure out what we're gonna do.
UV sterilizers.
UV sterilizer.
So you're gonna put inline UV sterilizers, but you can't gun the water past it because you need something which is your dwell time, which is your contact time.
Okay.
So when you pass water through a quart sleeve, which doesn't change the wavelength of the germicidal UVC, it actually burns. It burns all the pathogens that are in the water column. So bacteria, fungus, viruses, it destroys it and prevents them from propagating themselves. And it also will kill algae and all that different stuff. So we would want to go and identify a couple large volume UV sterilizers. We want to probably check out something called Aqua Ultraviolet.
Okay.
And they see if they have one called the Viper series. Oh, ooh, spicy. We pulled out this female. Oh, look at that. She wants to bite me.
Kevin, what did you do?
I have not, this has never been socialized. This is, we figured, yeah, you want to show off something. What are you doing?
What kind of snake we got?
So this is Boega. This is actually Cyanea. So they're green, and they start out a little different when they're little with these little orange heads. But look at that. So we have to have a couple that are just really dramatic. So she's really upset. Just her head, if you look down on her head, she's really being grumpy. I have other ones that are absolute dolls. But this is a very wonderful type of Boega. So this is multicincta. So this is really cool. Look at the many, many bands. I'm so cute. Just today, we're just showing you some random things. Hopefully you checked out the turtle, where I basically ground down the beak of a turtle. And this kind of stuff is pretty common. You get to see rescues. It's probably no different than when you're doing it with a bird like a macaw or whatever. It's not great doing it, but the results of actually fixing the turtle is pretty fantastic. But hopefully you like some of my cool snakes. We're going to be doing a lot of changes here at Nerd. I'm really trying to get more into things like my emerald tree boas, tokay geckos, my Bolin's pythons. So I've been designing cages. I have Reptile Basics making me a bunch of cages. Rich is so fantastic. He gets really into it because they're trying to come up with all sorts of new caging designs that really do more than just be a rectangular box. But I'm pretty excited about that stuff. So in the future, when I start getting caging, but the tokay geckos, I love tokay geckos. But I don't love things when I can't do them the way I want to do it. And so sometimes you have to keep adjusting the parameters of my cages so I can do it better. And then I can actually enjoy the animals and actually fulfill my major purpose, which is actually breeding these animals, actually trying to understand these animals. So for all the people that are following us, we appreciate you and taking time and attention to us. Please like and share this stuff. Make sure you follow me on Evil Morph God as well as New England Reptile. But Evil Morph God is my personal Instagram where I do a lot of stuff and I often act strange.
Yeah, that's a good way to call it.
Bye, guys.
I gotta turn my camera on, dude.
You didn't turn your camera on.